Hi everyone. Have you ever wondered what makes up everything around us, from your favorite toy to the air we breathe? The answer is atoms. Atoms are the building blocks of all matter. Today, we're going to explore what atoms are made of and how they work. Part 1. What is an atom? An atom is the smallest unit of matter, which means it's so tiny that we can't even see it with our eyes. Atoms are the reason elements, like gold or oxygen, have their properties. For example, an atom of gold makes gold shiny and valuable. Atoms can exist on their own, or they can join up with other atoms to form bigger things. For a long time, scientists thought atoms were indivisible, like tiny unbreakable marbles. But they discovered that atoms are actually made up of smaller parts called subatomic particles. Part 2. Subatomic particles. Atoms are made of three important subatomic particles. Electrons. These are tiny particles with a negative charge. They move super fast around the center of the atom in paths called orbits or shells. Think of electrons like planets zooming around the sun. They are very light, so they don't add much to the weight of the atom. Protons. Protons have a positive charge. They sit in the center of the atom, called the nucleus. Think of the nucleus like the sun in the center of the solar system. Protons are heavier than electrons, and their positive charge is what attracts the electrons, keeping them in their orbits. Neutrons. Neutrons are also found in the nucleus, but they don't have a charge. They are neutral, just like their name suggests. Neutrons add to the weight of the atom, but they don't affect the charge. Fun fact: atoms are neutral overall because the number of protons, positive charge, is equal to the number of electrons, negative charge. So, the positive and negative charges cancel each other out. Part 3. Orbits and shells. The electrons in an atom don't just float around randomly. They move in specific paths called orbits or shells. These shells are like the layers of an onion, and they are named K, L, M, N, or numbered 1, 2, 3, 4. The closest shell to the nucleus, K, has the lowest energy, while the outer shells, like L and M, have higher energy. Fun fact: electrons can move between these shells. When they lose energy, they fall into a lower shell. And when they gain energy, they jump to a higher shell. It's like climbing up or down a ladder. Each shell can hold only a certain number of electrons. For example, the K shell can hold 2 electrons. The L shell can hold 8 electrons. The M shell can hold 18 electrons. And the N shell can hold 32 electrons. The outermost shell of an atom is called the valence shell, and the electrons in this shell are called valence electrons. These electrons decide how the atom will bond with other atoms. Part 4. Molecules and atomicity. When atoms join together, they form molecules. A molecule is the smallest particle of a substance, and it has all the properties of that substance. For example, 2 oxygen atoms can join together to form an oxygen molecule, O2, that we breathe. Molecules of elements. These are made of the same type of atom. For example, Cl2 is made of 2 chlorine atoms. Molecules of compounds. These are made of different types of atoms. For example, H2O, water, is made of hydrogen and oxygen atoms. Atomicity is the number of atoms in a molecule. For example, H2 is a diatomic molecule, 2 atoms. O3 is a triatomic molecule, 3 atoms. H2O is also triatomic because it has 3 atoms, 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen. Part 5. Ions and bonding. Sometimes, atoms gain or lose electrons. When this happens, the atom becomes an ion. If it loses electrons, it becomes a positive ion, called a cation. If it gains electrons, it becomes a negative ion, called an anion. For example, sodium can lose an electron to become a sodium ion, Na. And chlorine can gain an electron to become a chloride ion, Cl. When these 2 ions combine, they form table salt, NaCl. Atoms combine to form compounds by gaining, losing, or sharing electrons. This leads to the formation of chemical bonds that hold the atoms together in a compound. Part 6. Valency and the periodic table. The valency of an atom is the number of electrons it can lose, gain, or share to bond with other atoms. For example, sodium Na has a valency of 1 because it can lose one electron, while oxygen O has a valency of 2 because it needs to gain 2 electrons to be stable. The periodic table is a chart that organizes all the known elements based on their atomic number and properties. Elements in the same column, called groups, have the same number of valence electrons and similar chemical properties. So, to wrap it up, atoms are the building blocks of matter and are made of protons, neutrons, and electrons. Molecules are groups of atoms bonded together. Ions are atoms with a charge, and valency helps atoms bond with others. The periodic table organizes all the elements based on their properties. Atoms might be super tiny, but they are the foundation of everything around us. Thanks for learning with me today. There's so much more to discover in chemistry, and I can't wait to explore it with you next time.